Obesity in South Africa, we are number 1 in sub-Saharan Africa. We're number 3 on the continent, and we're number 17 in the world.
They are getting out of control because lifestyles have changed, diets have changed.
We have this obesity diabetes epidemic, and it is going to cripple medical services in this country within the next 20 years. There will be no money to do anything but treat diabetes.
We don't have the right information because actually we've been misled, where foods that are marketed as healthy have actually loaded with staggering amounts of sugar.
The Department of Health is trying to meet with these big food companies to try get them to sort of put down on paper that they are committed to reducing the salt, to reducing the sugar.
We consume about 30 kilograms of sugar per year per person. It's just unbelievable.
Food manufacturers have tried to hook us by creating these chemical experiments which impact us in a way that isn't normal, because it overrides our natural satiety signals and it messes with our brain. It stimulates the brain's reward system and we become hooked and our brains become hijacked.
2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Wat noem julle dit?
Party pack. Party pack. In my youth, I wasn't fat. In my youth, I was always thin. Then after a couple of years of having babies, then I started gaining weight. We used to eating like porridge and, all stuff that we were taught like that. You must eat porridge in the morning and maybe mealie meal. But I used to love eating Kentucky and chips and all that foods, pizzas. I just used to love it. But now I know it's harmful. It is harmful. I had a heart attack first in 2002, and then after that, they were always looking at me, and then only a couple of years after that, and I never accepted that I'm diabetic, and then they said to me, no, I am, and I have to use the tablets that they gave me. Sugar is nice. Sugar, we used to read on the advertisements, sugar gives energy. Sugar gives energy. Suiker gee energy. But we didn't know that it's harmful. Sugars in everything. In everything I see now, and I've become aware of that you must rather read on the containers or the whatever, see how much sugar is in there, and even in the cold drinks, Cokes and stuff like that, it's sugar, and that makes that the person get this illnesses and stuff.
For every £1 the World Health Organization spends in trying to prevent chronic diseases, the food industry spends £500 in marketing junk food. That's the balance of power, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we're at.
The role of sugar has come under increased scrutiny in recent years, and many researchers now believe it's the main cause of lifestyle diseases. World-renowned cardiologist Dr. Asima Holtra is the founding member of Action on Sugar in the UK, lobbying for more stringent regulations of big food companies.
Obesity is just the tip of the iceberg, because about 40% of normal weight people with a normal body mass index, will actually harbour the same metabolic conditions such as high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease as people with obesity. So we're all vulnerable to this. So that's another perception we need to challenge. This issue is not about obesity, it's about processed food and everyone being vulnerable to it in terms of adverse health consequences. And sugar is now public enemy number one in the Western diet.
Anti-sugar crusaders say big food companies have become good at hiding sugar in plain sight.
The food industry uses an argument of personal responsibility. I'm all for personal responsibility, but you need to have at least two things to exercise personal responsibility. You need to have choice, and our choices are limited when you've got an oversupply of cheap sugary food. People find it difficult to make healthy choices. And the other thing is the right information. And we don't have the right information because actually we've been misled, where foods that are marketed as healthy have actually loaded with staggering amounts of sugar. And we know about 50% of sugar consumption comes from foods that people don't normally associate as junk food, from hidden sugars.
Karen Thompson has become South Africa's most vocal anti-sugar activist in recent years. We decide to accompany her to a local store to see just how much sugar has been added to everyday food.
They're checking us out. This one has, per 100 grams, has 8 grams of carbs. You divide it by 4 in order to get the teaspoon size. So there's 2 teaspoons per 100 grams. Now each one of these is 100 grams. So there's 2 teaspoons in each little pot, 2 teaspoons of added sugar. Now the World Health Organization recommends we have 4 teaspoons of added sugar max a day. So that's already half of it gone. Slimmer's choice, this should be interesting. So fat, pretty non-existent. Sugar, 12 grams. That's 3 teaspoons of sugar in this, but very little fat. So this is pretty much just sugar. Muesli, what does it actually have in? Because when I think muesli, I think nuts and seeds and like nutritious things. And this is slimmer, so if you want to lose weight, then this is what you eat. This is what you get, and you have a little bowl in the morning with some low-fat milk, and your little bowl in the morning will, have 28 grams of sugar in it, which is 7 teaspoons of sugar in your little bowl of 45 grams. So like 28 grams of sugar in 45 grams. So half of this bowl is pure sugar. I recently saw somebody refer to cereals as diabetes starter packs. So we start our kids young, and once again we've got the cartoon characters here. We've got a football player selling Milo.
We asked Karen to do a demonstration of exactly how much sugar is hidden in popular brands marketed specifically at children.
The cartoon characters, it's frightening. Let's take Cocoa Pops, which I know is a favorite. If my son could have them every day, he would. And I don't blame him, because pretty much 1 teaspoon of sugar per 1 tablespoon of tomato sauce. So you have 1 tablespoon of tomato sauce, and of that, this is how much sugar is in it. And then we come to this great sports drink. 500 milliliters of this gorgeous thing has 39 grams of sugar, which is just under 10 teaspoons. So let's have a look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we all think fruit juice is healthy, right? I mean, it's fruit. The problem is it's extracted, and there's none of the fiber in this. So this is probably one of the worst things that we could be feeding our kids. Okay, so if we look at that in a glass, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's fruit juice for you. And this we feed to babies. This we feed to little kids. And then we have this very special Disney Pixar helping us promote this lovely sugar-laden cereal. And I think we're just about to run out of sugar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So The sad reality is that many of the kids today have a bowl of this to start with, right? Then they play sport and they have a bottle of this to start to quench their thirst. Then they come home and they're thirsty and they have some fruit juice. And then with dinner they have some tomato sauce. All in all, that probably adds up to about 30 to 40 teaspoons of added sugar per day that we are feeding our children.
New Castle Milk Stout Chocolate Infused. Savor the moment. The crafted chocolate stout made to be savored responsibly by people over the age of 18.
We know you're out there, silently waiting for your spot in the limelight. Step up, people of the party. We need your energy, your greatness. Just because you don't do it for money doesn't make you an amateur. Yes, we salute you, party comrade, with a bottle of Johnny Walker Red Label for just $169.99 from Tops at Spa.
I got really sick and I didn't know what was wrong with me, so I went to the doctor. My weight was just ballooning. Went to the doctor, she did some tests, and then she called me and said, listen, you are on the cusp of diabetes, so you will have to lose some weight, start exercising, and then call me in a couple of months. I mean, I've struggled with my weight for 20 years. That was the worst thing that she could have told me. I started reading about sugar addiction and I just was very cynical. I thought, oh, sugar addiction, sex addiction, where does it end? Because for me, alcohol and drugs are addictions. So I phoned Karen, I set up an appointment to see her, and they were starting the first help program that weekend. So I signed up for the program, and actually understanding the definition of addiction changed my whole point of view.
Thank you.
If I was hungry, I would have a chocolate. If I'm in the grocery queue, I'll have a chocolate. And then I like that, and then I have another one, and I have another one in the car. So when you realize it's an addiction is when you actually have to hide the packets away from the kids or from people, and you know, it starts being something that's shameful. I can't have a little.
Yeah.
Because
And that's
it just triggers that thing in my brain again, and it's like.
We're the first treatment center in the world that uses a low-carb, high-fat nutritional approach. We don't just use it with our obese clients, but also with our other addicts. Because we find that sugar has a drug-like effect on the brain. So for obese clients or people with an eating disorder, sugar can act like a chemical stimulant in the same way as drugs like cocaine and heroin. You don't get the same high, don't get me wrong, but it does have the same effect. And the studies have also shown that sugar and junk food hijacks our brains and we become hooked.
It's a problem. Addiction is a problem. What happens generally is this. The amount of sugar in the bloodstream rises, and then the insulin, which is put out by the body to counter the sugar, allows the sugar to drop precipitously, and then the person feels hungry. So it doesn't give you a feeling of fullness. Actually, it stimulates the appetite and creates more need for sugar.
Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist Michael Moss exposed how big food companies pour billions of dollars into food science to create products that set off a chain of chemicals called the so-called bliss point.
Industry knows there's something called a bliss point. Okay, so how much sugar salt and fat do we love? That's what they want to know. And if there's a little bit less fat and a little bit less salt, they add in the sugar.
They actually have engineers engineering this food, that's why I call it a science experiment, to create this dopamine release in our brain that makes it so tasty and so incredible, but leaves us craving for more, so it doesn't satiate us. So it overrides the brain's natural satiety signals and makes us wanting to eat more and more and more. Normally, if you're eating chicken or meat or vegetables, you know when you're full. But when you're eating biscuits and cakes and chocolates, you can eat a lot more than you normally would. Why? Because it's been created to do that.
The industry is actively pushing it down the throats of people. In what way? By aggressive marketing and making sure that aggressively that is available even when you don't need it or even when you don't want it. A good example is what's happening in our big supermarkets these days. In the past, you used to move from the shelves to the till and pay. They no longer allow you to do that. They've rearranged the system in such a way that before you reach the till, you go through some passages. This way, that way, that way, this way, and arrive at the till. And what are the passages made of? They are made of shelves full of what? Sugar. You don't write them down, but the moment you arrive there in that passage, moving this way, moving that way, you get tempted to keep on picking. If you are with kids, you are finished. You can't resist them.
Food companies are spending millions to market and advertise specifically to children. Business journalist Quinton Bronkhorst says an investigation into kids' cereals showed it had the most sugar added, or what the food industry will refer to as the highest bliss point.
The cereals that are marketed to children are, it's a staple for all of us. We all love a good bowl of cereal, and the reason we like it is because it tastes so good. And the reason it tastes so good is because it's very sweet and appealing to our palates. Things like all bran flakes and your wheat bix and all those things that aren't really aimed towards children, they're not going to lay on all the sugar. In fact, those are the healthy options usually. We looked at the most popular brands in South Africa. So we looked at Kellogg's, we looked at Bacomo and Nestle, which is basically a new entrant to the cereal market. Kellogg's came out as being the worst. Kellogg's Cocoa Pops especially, they had the most sugar in them, followed by Kellogg's Strawberry Pops. Both of those, in every portion you'll have about 1/3 is pure sugar that you're getting in.
Of the three major cereal companies, only Kellogg responded to our questions in writing, saying Kellogg's is seeking ways to improve the nutrition profile of their foods and has embarked on sugar reduction strategies.
Advertising is a main concern because children want that what they see on the TV. So they want to buy those things. So I really think there is a big association.
The University of the Northwest is home to some of the country's leading experts on childhood obesity. Professor Anita Pinaar says their research shows South African children are now among the fattest in the world.
The rise in prevalence of obesity over the last few years are quite dramatic, and I think that's quite a health concern for a country like South Africa. Recent studies in South Africa indicate a prevalence of about 15% among children between birth and the age of 19 years. It is indicated by studies that South African children has amongst the highest prevalence of obesity in Africa.
Health activists are now calling for regulations of big food companies and even a sugar tax.
There is an increasing move around the world for this sugar tax, and it looks like we are being too radical in health, but we are scared. We're virtually scared. What are we scared about? We are scared of the changes that are taking place because of what will happen to healthcare systems around the world.
For victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sport action. This is the home of all your sport news, updates and more. Sports Live weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
No, we don't have almonds mayonnaise. No, it's not sound. There's no sound.
After kicking her sugar addiction and shedding 24 kilograms, Lisa realized drastic changes needed to be made at home. Her children's health had been suffering from poor eating habits.
It's just like
ice skating.
I guess. I was always a fat kid. If I say that. And I always struggled with my weight, and I never quite knew what to do about it, so I just left it. And I didn't really exercise. I kind of gave up on losing weight.
Josh remained overweight throughout his childhood and teenage years.
You knew that you were there.
But his mother encouraged him to make one big change to his diet. He cut out sugar.
And then cut off the pants away.
Over a 1-year period, Josh lost a staggering 30 kilograms. His energy levels improved dramatically and he started leading an active lifestyle. Health experts warn that for the first time in human history, the growing obesity levels among children could see today's adult population outlive their kids.
There's that really fat one.
I think it is a reality that we are facing. Currently, I think it's the life expectancy of obese people are lower. That is true, and there are more and more studies that are supporting that. I know of a study that was conducted at the Oxford University, where they found that moderate obesity, which is now common all over the world, can reduce your life expectancy up to 3 years. And then there's other studies that say that extreme obesity can reduce it up to 16 years of age. So if you make your calculation, it can happen that a child can die before his parent who might be a healthy adult.
Waiting for somebody to become obese, develop high blood pressure or diabetes is just too late. We have to do something to prevent this in the first place. Okay, the health systems are pretty fragile. They've overwhelmed. But if we could prevent even a couple of 100,000 of people getting obese, that would be incredible.
We have this massive cognitive dissonance in South Africa, that we have this obesity diabetes epidemic, and it is going to cripple medical services in this country within the next 20 years. There will be no money to do anything but treat diabetes. And while Rome burns, Nero fiddles. He's playing his fiddle and no one's taking it seriously.
Professor Noakes has been on the forefront of South Africa's low-carb, high-fat movement through his so-called Banting diet, warning that South Africans overconsume carbohydrates, leading to our high levels of metabolic diseases such as diabetes and insulin resistance.
We are fat because we're insulin resistant. We have a very high prevalence of insulin resistance and we eat a high carbohydrate diet. And the dietary authorities say that we must eat carbohydrates because they're healthy and they will make us lean and live forever. And unfortunately, it's the exact opposite. The more fat you eat, the healthier you are. The more carbohydrates you eat, the fatter you are, the more diabetic you are, and the more heart disease you have.
We do not concentrate on one specific nutrient. So there are many guidelines out there that do include macronutrient distributions, such as how much carbs, how much protein, how much fat you should have. But looking at that and singling out nutrients again is not going to solve any problems with regards to obesity, because it's then only looking at one single nutrient, which is one problem.
Professor Tim Noakes has been called before the Medical Professions Council to defend his controversial stance on nutrition. The debate around fat versus carbs as the leading cause of our obesity levels has been dominating the health discourse in mainstream media in recent years. Nutritional experts were up in arms following Professor Noakes' advice to a mother to wean her baby onto a low-carb, high-fat diet.
There was not one thread of evidence, that a low-fat diet will make you healthy. And it's taken 50 years for it to be exposed. And, you could blame me because I was also wrong. I fell for their story. But it was wrong. And there is no evidence that a low-fat diet is healthy.
There is a lot of confusion out there, and there is a lot of sort of noise going on at the moment with regards to what healthy eating is. At the end of the day, it's important again to take that food-based approach and not concentrate on single nutrients, because again, we eat food and not nutrients, and the obesity problem is so complex that you can't only single out one specific thing.
An unlikely place for the high-fat, low-carb diet to take shape. A group of pensioners from the Lavender Hill neighbourhood get together once a week to measure their weight loss progress on the Banting diet. And now Valerie September has joined the queue.
I never knew that I would now at my age go on a diet or something like that. I had to lose weight because of my health. And then I heard about this Banting and I went on it, and I seem to be losing weight nicely, and all around I'm losing weight.
I'm not the cholesterol.
The verdict is still out on whether a low-carb, high-fat approach can tackle our obesity epidemic. For now, science experts remain at loggerheads over the issue.
I'm waiting for them to battle it out and come up with a solution, and I'm begging them, please stop confusing the public. Please stop confusing the public. They are looking upon you to come with answers. Sit down and debate this issue scientifically. Science has always done that. Once they all agree and gets into medical journal, we ordinary people follow. But when they start arguing, we can't be expected to choose which one is correct. We don't have the skills to do so.
So I would say, Ben,